Hi guys. This month of October has been treacherous in the spiritual realm. And I don't know if it's just me or any of my fellow believers, if you've been having a tough time sleeping. Like, this month has been so hard for me to get a good night's rest. And you got to kind of put in perspective of what's going on right now. Did you guys know that the month of October is the only month throughout the year that has the most powerful spiritual presence out of all the other months? So we know that Halloween comes with the month of October. And as a fellow believer, as a fellow follower of Christ, Halloween isn't something that us Christians essentially should be celebrating. Because if you think about it, what is Halloween? Halloween is the one day out of the year that people do bad deeds, or people who are mischievous, who go around doing little pranks. And even the term trick or treat is kind of disheartening. And then, it's just widespread. But on the spiritual aspect, I've watched a lot of podcasts and a bunch of witches who essentially were witches, who were following practices under Satanism and who've converted to Christianity. And they just explained that the month of October is the highest rates for blood sacrifices. It is the highest rate of occult practice. And putting this in perspective, it completely slipped my mind. And this whole month, I've been under crazy spiritual warfare. I'm talking about the spiritual warfare that not only happens in the home or, outside of the home, but spiritual warfare that affects you in your dream state and that variation of the spiritual realm. Now, we know, or if you may or may not know, that some demonic practices in dreams, you should never eat. You should never, fornicate. You should never give information to anything or anyone in your dreams. Now, it's kind of hard to put in perspective what actually that entails and what it means, but just listen and try to follow with me. So, society has this way of saying, oh, if you see familiar faces in dreams, it's just because people in your dreams are just, your brain can't make up, or you can't see faces that you've never seen before. And I'm here to tell you that that's a lie, because I've personally seen people in my dreams that I've never seen a day in my life before. And secondly, was revealed to me that familiar faces in your dreams are often spirits or demonic presence who disguise themselves as people from your past, as people from your present, as people you've had an interaction with. And in your dream, they disguise themselves as familiar faces for you to let your guard down. Whether you may or may not realize it, you have power in the spiritual realm when you dream. Now, it may come harder to other people, whereas though, it's harder for them to control, have that perception, that physical perception in the spiritual realm. And I say that comes with time. But once you get a grasp and you understand, then you'll be able to decipher when you're in the spiritual realm, hey, familiar face, hey, I know you're a spirit, you're up to no good. Now, I have spiritual protectors in my dreams. Whenever I pray before I go to bed, I always ask God to, protect me. Send who or whatever it is to protect me in the spiritual realm when I sleep. Because naturally, when we sleep, we have no idea what our subconscious or what we're going into when we enter the spiritual realm. In, the physical realm, people or scientists, psychologists make it seem like, you're unconscious. So when you go into the spiritual, or when you dream, it's just your unconscious. It's just things in your brain, that you might have dealt down, or, that you might have kind of pushed to the side, and it's just coming out in your dreams. Everything in your dreams is important. It may not be substantial, but it is important to pay attention to your dreams. I encourage anyone, if you're a dreamer, if you're a seer, write your dreams down. The smallest thing may seem not important, but write it down because it may have significance or importance later down the line. So you find yourself in situations where you have these weird dreams, write them down so you don't forget them. A lot of time God communicates and speaks to us in the spiritual realm. Why? Because we're spiritual beings before we are physical beings. There are people who detest the fact that they're spiritual beings before they're physical, and they just think they're humans, and when they die, that's just it. That's all, well and dandy for them. But for those who are woke and know that the spiritual realm, you are spirits before we are essentially people. So back into what I was saying. These spirits and these demonic presences disguise themselves as familiar faces to let you put your guard down. So this entices them and this allows them into your life. Now, if you were like me in the beginning, when I used to dream and I used to see familiar faces, I used to be like, oh, this was my uncle, or this was my brother, and in my dream, and we was chatting, or this was somebody I used to know, and we were chit-chatting. I had to come in agreement after realizing later down the line that those was familiar spirits that, that I was enticing or giving information to. And then we have these other spirits who are in charge of watching over you. Now, you may starve them in the physical realm, like don't give access to the people that who have these monitoring spirits, but in the spiritual realm, they can affect you as well. They can disguise themselves as familiar faces to get you to put your guard down, to give them the information that they're seeking for. And when I tell you this month, I don't know what's been going on with me, but I've just been out of alignment and I've been letting my guard down. And like I said before, I ask God, before I go to sleep, can you send a spiritual protector to come watch over me in the spiritual realm? Because sometimes I do things unconsciously, not even knowing, or consciously knowing, but not really know, or forgetting the fact that, hey, you're in the spiritual realm. You need to be on your toes. You need to be on your guard. So God has been sending me cats. I'm not a cat person. I don't know where I've never been a cat person comes from, but now I'm starting to open my eyes because he's sending me a lot of dreams with cats. And at first I didn't understand. And these cats will come up to me. They was always loving. It was always affection. It was always showing me, the sense of protection when it came with me, with the cat interactions with the cats. And I was just like, I even said it in my dream, like, I'm not a cat person. And that's your physical perception going into the spiritual realm. So that's how you can differentiate. Now, there are certain circumstances where if you're a dreamer like me or seer, where sometimes it gets hard when you dream to differentiate whether it's the actual real world or if you're in the spiritual realm and you're dreaming. That's when it's like, you got to be on your guard and you got to pay attention, because I also had that problem where I'm like, I can't tell if I'm in the real world or if I'm dreaming, because that's how real it was in the spiritual realm. And you got to think about it. The spiritual realm are in different dimensions, and whether you want to believe it or whether you not want to believe it, when you die or whatever happens the case, you're in a certain dimension, and everyone still is in the world, just in different dimensions. And so when you have access to the spiritual realm, you're essentially in the world. You're just in a different dimension of the world. So these cats have been coming. They've been protecting me. And it was a very specific dream as to hence me creating this video of, this guy that I've seen on social media. And he was in my dream. And in my dream, he wasn't doing anything to entice me. He wasn't like leading me on. He wasn't any of that. But he was making me comfortable. And I was just like, oh. And I was getting to a point where I'm about to talk to him and, things start trying to transpire. And then out of nowhere, he says, what is that? And I look over and he points to me, and he points to it, and it's a cat, and the cat is kind of just like walking toward us. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm not a cat person. And the cat just launches at him. Attacks him. If you ever seen a cat attack, that cat went to pure feral mode. I'm talking level 100. He was not playing, and he attacked that spirit, and I woke up. And so like it was different instances where, these cats came out of nowhere to protect me, to stop me from doing something. Just recently, stop me from eating. When you let your guard down, you allow that demonic presence in your life when you eat in your dreams. We had a table eating McDonald's, everybody got their stuff, and then something just told me to walk away from the table. So I walk away for a second and then get led by the cat back to the table, and then all the people around me eating all my food, and the cat sitting there, and I'm getting angry in my dream because I'm like, that was my food. Like, I don't play about my food. Why are these people eating my food? So I'm starting to get myself riled up, and then I wake up. So it's just like paying attention to stuff like that. So these spirits want you to get your guard down. Because this is how I'll say there were a couple of dreams where I let my guard down and I wasn't paying attention. And the next thing I noticed, I'm noticing a shift within a week of me not having the desire to want to do nothing. I'm not getting up to read. I'm not getting up to study my Bible. I'm just lounging. I'm snapping. I'm angry. I'm having all these negative emotions, and it gets so normalized and you think it's normal that you're digging deeper and deeper and deeper into it. So not only did you give those spirits or that demonic presence access to get into you, but now you're letting them wreak havoc because you're not doing anything about it. You're not like coming to the realization like, hey, hold up, pause, something's not right here. So it literally didn't just hit me until today. So this whole month of October is like an eye opener, and it's also for anyone who are followers of Christ to be on your guard, to be on your toes, if you're not sleeping like me, I don't sleep for long. I get maybe 2-3 hours of sleep, and then I'm up. And at first I kept fighting, and I'm like, I'm just staying in the bed. Like, why am I up right now? I'm supposed to be asleep. Like, what is the problem with not understanding or realizing my ears is ringing? You need to be praying right now. You need to be in your word right now. This is not a time that you can have your guard down, because this month in particular there is so much negative influence in the spiritual realm. There's so much pressure. There's so much power in the spiritual realm that they're wreaking havoc, and you're allowing that into your home. You're allowing that into your space. Whenever you feel like you might anoint wherever you live, and you anoint yourself, you anoint your kids, you pray, it needs to be an active thing. It needs to be something that happens daily, and even not in particular just in the month of October, but daily period. Because sometimes we often as believers let our guard down because we think, well, I anointed my place last month or 2 months ago. It's cool. We are never not under attack. We are always under attack. We need to be 5 steps ahead. If you're constantly praying, you're constantly rebuking spirits and demonic presence over where you are, what you have. If you're constantly anointing, then it gives this power and anointing around you, whereas though they don't have an easier access to be able to get to you. But when you let your guard down and you stop praying as much, and you find yourself more into the TV, more doom scrolling, more spending time, outside in the world, you're letting that barrier down and you're thinning that layer. So it's important to be able to strengthen that layer. Now, for some of us believers who haven't been convicted about Halloween yet, Halloween, you shouldn't be celebrating it. The whole spooky kind of mantra is something that you shouldn't celebrate. Now, me not knowing, in my younger years, even when I first had my child, the first couple of years, my relationship wasn't like this with the Lord. So there was no conviction there. But as my relationship started building and growing and our connection got deeper, the conviction came. So that's not to, to put, how does that say? That's not to throw shade at someone else, or it's not to look down at someone else or judge someone else who's celebrating Halloween just because, you're farther in your faith and you understand and they haven't had that conviction yet. You can kind of put the seed out there, but ultimately God is the one that allows it to grow. So you got to kind of let them figure it out, because, you know, they may be new in the faith. They may be, you know, I don't understand what's the importance behind it. But if you actually do your research and know what Halloween even consists of, or this whole spooky month consists of, then you know some crazy stuff go down. And it's not even just with the Halloween. That's just a sugar coated. There are a lot of occult practices. There are a lot of blood sacrifices that's going on, whether you're in touch with tune with Hollywood and whatever they got going on. Any witch can tell you that the month of October is crucial. It is a month, it's imperative that as believers, we need to be heavily praying. We need to be heavily in our word. We need to heavily be on guard when it comes to the spiritual realm as far as sleeping. So with that being said, guys, just stay on your guard. Do what you got to do. Pray, stay in your word, use your discernment, use these gifts that God has blessed you with. And with that being said, I love you, and I will see you guys in another one. Bye.
Hi guys, if you like this video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe.